Ryan and Nikki J. He's been coming after.
Oh yeah.
So
All
I
right
don't think.
there.
But yeah, whatever you want to do.
Okay, so we're doing this right now. Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Earl here, and I have Extreme Chef with me on the call right now. And we're
Hello.
here. Hello. We're here to talk about memories of Detroit. Michigan memories, music, movies, TV shows, and everything else. Plus, I wanted to talk to you, Shep, about something that I found out about last Friday night after I got home from my work. Donald Trump was in Detroit speaking at a place called the Detroit Economic Club, and he mentioned during his speech that if Kamala Harris was elected president, the whole country, the whole US of A, would end up being just like Detroit. And this pissed off a lot of Detroiters. A couple of
Oh,
them that were pissed off was, of course, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, and one representative whose name escapes me right now. She basically called him out saying Trump is calling us ugly, but yet asking us out on a date.
yeah, you're gonna get a. I think you're gonna get a lot of that because Detroit, since I would say, well, when was Coleman Young elected?
I'm not too
And
sure.
I think it was the late '60s, and he
Yes,
was mayor for a long time. And
20 years.
yeah,
20 years up until not 1993 when Dennis Archer became the new mayor in how many
okay,
years? And I guess we also had another mayor, I forgot his name, but then Kwame Kilpatrick came in. But Coleman Young for many years was like he was like considered a mayor like no other. I mean, he
yeah.
had a lot of scandals, he had a lot of baggage that he brought along to the table.
And do you remember? Do you remember when? Because you should have been.
Hmm? I think your voice cut out, dude. Hello, Shap. There you go. We just had a little issue here. I don't know what's going on. Shaft, you there, dude? Let me call him again. Something happened. There you go.
I don't know what happened. It just cut me off, but you
All
got
right.
it.
Okay, there.
Um,
Yes.
well, getting back to what I was saying, when you'd remember back in the '80s when there was a news conference and I don't know why he it came up, but he want you remember the Joe Louis fist
Yes, I
that
remember
hangs
that.
out,
Yes.
and he wanted to point the middle finger at the suburbs.
Really.
Oh yeah, so your Detroit is been ran by the Democrats since
God knows how long.
yeah
I
since
cannot even remember. You also got to remember now. Let me point this out. Michigan altogether is a very blue state. About
yes
30% of the population in that whole state were the ones that voted for Trump in both 2016 and in 2020. So obviously there are anti-Trumpers everywhere you go. I mean,
right.
Michigan has been blue, Democratic from the word go for how many years? And I think one of the reasons why it's been blue extremely nowadays because of the last two Republican governors that we had. The ones I remember, John Engler and
Yep.
Rick Snyder. Now, John
Right.
Engler, he was at fault for cutting off so many programs. And apparently, the reason being was because he held up this empty wallet during one press conference to describe what was going on. This is the budget of the state, and as you can see, it is empty because they basically ran out of money because to afford all these programs. And a lot of people were depending on these programs like government assistance, some state insurance, welfare, and everything else. Now, one thing you got to realize about the Democrats, they got the idea that all the Republicans got never endless accounts of money, but it's not so. Money doesn't grow on trees. So I'm thinking that was probably one of the big reasons why he had to make all these cuts.
I yeah, definitely. I'm sure that is some of the case, but naturally, here in Michigan, yeah, our the Tri-County area, what we call it, around Detroit, um, yeah, usually this area is a very blue, where most of your population is very blue.
Yes.
Me and Nikki J argue about it all the time because he's from a more rural area of Michigan
Hmm.
versus where you and I are from.
Yeah.
Um, so they are a lot more, you know, a lot more conservative up in his part.
Yes.
But the last in 2000, when Trump won in 2016, he actually won Macomb County,
Hmm.
which by minimal votes, but he did end up winning the county, which was unprecedented when he did that.
Yeah. Because now you also got to keep in mind that I think one of the other big reasons why he made the remark that he made was because of the fact that Detroit has had a long reputation of being a city of crime, a city of corruption, a city of chaos. You know, the 67 riots that occurred
Yep.
that year. I mean, the often many people printing out T-shirts, making jokes about Detroit, like Detroit, where the weak are killed and eaten. You know, come back to Detroit. We miss you the first time. Has a person holding a pistol.
Or the smiley face shirt, the yellow smiley face shirt with the
Hmm.
bullet in your head, in
Yep.
the head, with the
Yep.
"Welcome to Detroit."
I remember that.
Yeah, that's always a good one. Well, that was in '67 is when when all the quote unquote white people started going to the suburbs
Hmm.
and leaving Detroit because of the craziness. My mother was actually down in school at one of the hospitals down there during the riots and actually was on lockdown and couldn't leave the hospital
Wow.
when she was when she was younger. It was she always it was quite an ordeal from, and my mother actually grew up in New York, so
Hmm.
she grew up in the Bronx and then come over, here, and then how different that was and how things were. And you had well, we got the UAW and a lot of
Yeah, so
union
many issues
workers.
with that. But throughout time and time again, there's always conflicts between the big three and the
Yep,
UAW.
it never stops.
I know.
We're in a situation right now where the corporation that I work for is in dire straits, and if she gets elected, um, you'll probably see the brands gone
I know.
within a few years. Those brands will be gone and not be seen anymore. And they're iconic brands, for this, especially coming from this area. And yeah, it's a scary thing going on right now. You got UAW workers boycotting buying cars because of what's going on,
Hmm.
and it's really hurt the local economy around here, and with the inflation and how much things have gone up in the last 5 years,
Oh man.
cars, everything, it starts with fuel and goes up from there,
And yet here's Mike Duggan, the mayor of Detroit currently. I believe he was the first white mayor in that city in God knows how many years.
Yeah, it's
He's
been a
make
long time.
Yeah, he's making this claim that Detroit has had a growth in population, a drop in crime rate.
Sure,
Yeah. Now has
but
is
it's
this
down,
which
you know
yeah,
what area it is, Dr. Earl?
yeah.
It's down in the downtown area, off of Jefferson,
Yes.
over in Corktown,
Hmm.
around the stadium areas.
The
Have you
Rent
seen all
Center
three?
area.
Yeah, there's that may be coming down too, and something new going there. The rents then may be coming down soon.
I hope not, because that's like a Detroit tradition for how many years, along with Hart Plaza.
Yeah,
The
yeah. Even Renaissance Center is currently hardly even they're using hardly any of the floors. It's owned by GM
hmm.
now,
Yes.
and GM is talking about tearing it down and
Really.
building something else there or selling the property. Yeah, it's got a different face on the riverfront now, Dr. Earl, especially with Joe Louis Arena gone.
Yeah.
That whole area, they got a whole walking area now down there where you
Yeah.
can actually walk the waterfront,
I
which
know. I
back
heard about that.
when we were growing up, that was nothing. You couldn't, they were selling dime bags back there and fucking hookers back there
Yeah.
on that waterfront back in the, 70s and 80s. It's basically, if you remember where the Bobolo boat picked up,
Mm-hmm.
it runs from there all the way to the Renaissance Center and past going towards the bridge to Belle Isle
Mm-hmm.
that has a walkway now. Like,
Yes.
I guess we could call it a boardwalk, but it is paved.
I know. I miss Belle Isle. I used to,
Oh,
me
yeah.
and whatever girl I was going out with at a few times would drive around there late at night.
Right?
A couple of times I drove around with the lights off to see what kind of effect it would had, and that was the perfect time to play the album Atom by Atom by Tangerine Dream. Great album from them, and it
Right.
was just the atmosphere of that album mixed in perfectly with the atmosphere of Belle Isle late at night. That
Yep.
was a trip to me. It's like there were a couple of times I wanted to ride my bike around the area, but I figured not to because, from what I was told, it was closed down at night except for special occasions.
Yeah, now it's Belle Isle is ran by the state, so it is a quote unquote metro park. If you remember what metro parks were,
Yes, I remember. It used
like
to be a
Metro Beach and Stony
yes, I
Creek,
remember that.
those.
I remember those spots. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure you've been, well, being from the Richmond area. I'm sure you did a lot of. Did you get up towards Port Huron and?
Well,
It,
when I was living in Richmond in the early 2000s, I did not have a car. I was able to ride with a couple of people to areas like Port Huron and a couple other spots. But when I was living there, I was able to ride my bike to a gas station bus stop on 23 Mile Road and
right.
take the bus whichever spot I wanted to go to, whether it was in Roseville or it was in Mount Clemens, when
Yeah,
I would
because it
go.
runs up and down Gratiot.
Exactly. Unfortunately, no, what pisses me off about the smart bus is that they would just stop at 23 Mile Road and I would had to ride my bike all the way back to Richmond, which
Oh,
was
from
a good.
23 Mile, you would ride your bike all the way.
Yeah, I did not have a car at that time. I was struggling at that moment, at that period in time.
Uh,
So I had to rely on myself to get back to where I needed to go to, even sometimes in the
I
winter
mean,
time.
that's a 20-minute car. That's a 15-minute car ride from 23 back up into Richmond. It would have to take you an hour to get up there unless you were on the south side of town.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on. I mean, I lived basically in three different areas. I was
Uh,
born in Detroit. We lived there, me, my sister, my mom, and dad, up until about when my dad got a better paying job. That's when we all moved to Roseville. And one of the
what
big reasons, yeah, go ahead.
what street did you live on in Roseville? Do you
I won't give
remember?
out the name of the street, but for doxing reasons, but
Oh, okay.
it was close to a Fraser Road.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
very close to Gratiot and Fraser Road, where the
Okay,
old Ritz in Roseville used to be located.
I know, I know where you're at.
Yes, well, it used to be there.
But yeah, I know where that's at.
Yes.
Yep. I I grew up. Let's see if I can do it with. I don't. I grew up at the me saying the street and ain't gonna do nothing. 17 and Hayes. I grew up at.
Ah,
Yeah, on the Clinton Township side.
I see there. I used to go everywhere around those areas, like Clinton Township, Sterling Heights, Troy,
Sure.
all those places on my days off from work. I used to drive all over the place, Novi, Ann
Oh yeah.
Arbor. It's
Yeah.
like it was fun exploring new areas, Ypsilanti, all those spots.
Yeah. I don't go down that. I don't go south of the city too much. I'm more of an east sider.
Hmm.
That's kind of my thing. But back to what Trump said, I kind of I agree with him because if you get out of the main part of the city, the downtown area, the business area, excuse my French, but it's a
Go ahead.
shithole.
Yeah.
It's a shithole. You could literally go down there and buy up blocks with no
Mm.
homes on it and buy up the whole block for dirt cheap if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I heard about that as well. But
Yeah,
when you think about it, Detroit has also had a reputation, as I mentioned, the murder capital world. I mean, like, God knows. And plus, many times the police were not able to take care of matters.
we had, and then we had you remember well, we had Malice Green. You remember that
Yeah.
one?
Oh, yes, I remember it. It was on the
The
Warren
three cops.
Avenue. Yes, I
Yep,
remember. Two of them being Larry Nevers and Walter
yep,
Budson, who are still
yep.
serving time today in prison.
I think they're dead now.
Really interesting.
I think they're gone. I think they
Wow,
died.
interesting. Got to look them up. Definitely. Where we're done with
And
the show here.
did you know White Boy Rick was out of jail? Right, you
Yes,
knew
I
that.
heard about that. A friend of mine on Facebook, I'm friends with. I knew her
Mm-hmm.
since Ritz and Rosehill days. She reported on that on in a post. Which by the way, White Boy Rick was made into a movie. I'm just sure you've
Right.
heard about
Yep.
that.
Yep.
That dude
Yeah.
captured a lot of attention in the local press there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a big thing. Yeah, he was. But yeah, he's living large now. He came out living large.
That's good there. And plus, John Schmidt, the guy who shot Scott Adamir after that episode of Jenny Jones, which never aired.
I remember that. You're
Yes, in
right.
fact, that what's kind of funny during his trial, the only time any of that trial was broadcasted on local TV was when Jenny Jones herself arrived to take the stand to give
Sure.
her testimony. That's when all the local stations went live with the coverage because
Right.
obviously this is the main woman in question. She was the one being put on the spot by not only Jeffrey Feiger, Michigan's top lawyer to those outside of Michigan, but this is a woman that was accused of setting up people and then boom, pulling the rug underneath their feet.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. But then again, at that time, many talk shows, in fact, me and YR and Paul 3 talk about that during a talk show program we did about, all the talk shows like Phil Donahue, Wanda Watts, and many others. In fact, what did the Cosby kids, Tempest Miss Go? She had a, talk show for a short, brief time there.
Yeah. But they don't compare to the Phil Donahues and the Jenny Joneses and who else was. You remember who was it? Morton Downey Jr.
Yes, I used to watch him on a daily basis when they were broadcasting him on Channel 2. Most
Yep.
definitely. I had my mom even record episodes of his program when I was at my job, when I was unable to watch any episodes. So I
Hmm.
go over there, and watch episodes for myself and hang around, talk with her and dad and such.
Yeah.
But I used to enjoy watching him a lot. No, most definitely. He was on a point on a lot of things.
Yep. Yeah, but yeah, I don't disagree with what he's saying because Democrats run the city.
Exactly. I mean, when you think
and
about
he's
it,
and he
I,
I don't think I mean he was being real about it. I don't think that necessarily is a negative comment unless you already know how bad the city is.
but then again, let's not forget many like people like Whitmer and Duggan. They're trying to salvage their reputation. They're trying to protect their state, their cities, and stuff. So they'll probably come up with certain things to say. I know Whitmer said Detroiters are not going to forget this coming November. That's for sure. But then again, Detroit was never really on Trump's side to begin with, as I
Right.
mentioned.
Right. And the people that he was talking to would be people that are probably especially at the economic meetings,
Hmm.
that he was at
Yes.
talking.
Yes.
Those people are probably in agreement
Hmm.
with Trump. But yeah, but it's only that's I mean, people are trying to make it a bad comment. Well, Detroit is ran by Democrats. Democrats are going to run our country again and even longer. Yeah, we're going to
If this
eventually the
bitch
whole
is elected.
country. is going to be like Detroit.
Yes, and we don't need that. That's for sure. I'm praying
Yeah,
that Trump, wins again. To be honest,
yeah, you got that from 11 Mile down to
to the downtown heart of the city.
yeah, is and I can't even see it because there are but if you're going parameters of Van, let's say Woodward to Gratiot,
Hmm.
because there's some decent spots south of 11 Mile in that Oakland County Woodward area. There's
Yes,
a lot of, you get into Ferndale over there,
yes.
and very, very, very nice.
And Ferndale, for I understand, is now becoming the new gay capital of the world compared to San Francisco.
I did sell two gentlemen that have been married for 5 years,
Hmm.
and I just did sell them a vehicle,
Ah,
and
nice.
they lived in Ferndale.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely yeah.
Oh gosh. It kind of reminds. Speaking of Ferndale, it kind of reminds me of Royal Oak.
Oh
I
yeah.
used to go there lots of times, or places like Nora Leather, Incognito,
Mm-hmm.
Off the Record. Hell, at that place, you used to find these Pink Floyd trance remix CDs. They would remix the whole albums into different versions of the original tracks on them. They
Right.
cost they did cost about over $30, but when you think about it, it was well worth it. I think some of them are here on YouTube, many of
Right.
them, and some are speculating that members of the English electronic group The Orb were responsible for these remixes, which, by the way, for I understand, were unauthorized.
Yeah. Yeah. Royal Oak has become. It's kind of. It took a little hit. It took a little hit for the last 5, 7 years because they went a little too crazy with parking and paying for parking.
Yep.
So people were staying away, but
Yes.
now they're changing it back up to a different way. I guess is what I heard.
Yeah, because I used to have that issue a lot of times. Where to park without paying, where to park without paying for this. That was one of the big problems for me. There were a few times, same thing in some areas of Detroit, around the State Theater area, now
Yep.
called the Fillmore.
Yep. Used to have a
Yeah,
lot of good times at the State Theater.
yeah, I
That was a,
remember,
that,
seeing good bands play there. I actually boycotted the State Theater for a couple of years because of the security way they treated me and a few others when Skinny Puppy played that place back in 1992.
wow.
They were like basically arrogant, disrespectful. The arts outside guard were prevented me from hanging around. They prevented a couple others hanging around. And afterwards, a couple cops approached us to tell us to get it in our cars and leave. They were going to lock us up if we didn't do so. Like we really needed to hear that.
Oh well, that was Detroit in '92.
Yeah, that's right. And plus, for I understand now, that one security guard that used to guard outside of the state there, he got booted because he was treating everybody like total shit. So, which
So
made me
you're
happy.
did you just go there for shows, or did you go to
Club
if you were there going there
Clubland
in
or Club X?
'92? Because they
Well,
had a lot of a big club scene there in '92,
yes, I think it
and
was called Clubland, sponsored by one of the stations there. It was an alternative station.
I thought it was Club X,
I think it
sponsored
was
by
called. It was well, originally it was Club. It was Clubland on Saturday nights, and it
right
was a little special occasion there on the weekends. Then it became Club X when one of the alternative stations nearby.
89X, the
Yes,
Canadian one.
exactly. Yes, Greg Knipp used to work for that
Yep,
station,
yep, yep.
and
And
then
then
used
they
to go ahead.
go. I was just gonna say, and then you had St. Andrew's Hall
Mm-hmm.
was
The
another good
shelter,
one.
shelter every
Yep.
Wednesday night. I remember DJ Quig used to talk with him, bring records and CDs to him to play. And it was
You know
good
who
times.
else?
Gun,
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know who else? A DJ who started in Detroit too, and ends from Detroit,
Hmm.
and he's worldwide. Is DJ Godfather?
Yes, I heard of him very well. He was one of the guys behind ghetto tech beats, those ghetto
Yep.
tech tracks. I remember. I know what you're talking about. Do 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 do
Yep.
do 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 do. Yeah, this is stuff for the girls to shake their booty to twerk their
Yep.
asses off with.
And they did it on turntables. This was before all the digital shit too. These guys did it.
Yep, exactly. So if it's to say that both Detroit and Germany were birthplaces of techno music, and I mentioned
I would say Detroit. I think the Germans got it from Detroit. But
maybe
yeah, I think it started here.
because I remember a Tangerine Dream used to have bass lines of some of the couple of their tracks, and they
Hmm.
would resemble good techno music. In fact, Klaus Schulze, rest in peace, he had a piece called Four Buried Graves that I have on my files on you here on my computer. It was started slow, but then he wanted to rise up to a techno beat without the beat, of course. You kind of sum up where we're coming from here when I describe that description for you.
Right.
And what going back to Malice Green,
Hmm.
back in 1992, it was a year after the Rodney King case. Now,
Yeah, it was.
yeah, it was, and like now, I don't know if it got as much coverage as Rodney King did, but
Right.
it really definitely put the Detroit police on blast because here were three cops trying to apprehend this one guy who apparently was on some sort of a high on which it was crack or which it was. He apparently had some crack in his hands. They were trying to make him let go of it, but he refused. And I guess for understand, both Butson and Nevers allowed their frustrations, their resentments to take over. And that's when they all started beating the crap out of this guy. There was a
Right.
third man, a black cop, and he was apparently the one saying, stop it, take it easy on him. But of course, those two never did.
No. Different time. Yeah. Well, they paid for it, didn't they?
They did,
They.
yes. Their sentencing were broadcast live on local TV. And Nevers, he was like fucking crying his eyes out. And when
Yep.
he read his sentence, he was found guilty. He bowed down and started crying even more.
Wow. In May, it was 30 years.
I know, yes. I'm thinking there, me and a buddy of mine, the oldest son of my ex-girlfriend, rode our bikes down to the area where that incident occurred. I think it was 24 and no, Warren Avenue, I meant to say.
Yeah.
Yes, I
It
visited.
was on the east side.
Yeah, the building was pretty much tore down except for that one painting of Malice Green with the afro. That was an iconic
Hmm.
photo.
Yep.
And we were examining it. We wanted to get some ghost recordings, and my buddy was like, "Yo, I'm starting to get bad vibes. So I'm starting to get uncomfortable." Well, of course, obviously, because a man was killed here,
Hmm.
and that man's murder made national news. In fact,
Yeah.
years before, a year after that incident, I visited that spot. I found it. I was the only white guy within the group of black people, and there was this one preacher talking about, black on black violence. This is a people issue. We need blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. And he said, and me being the only white guy there, he pointed at me and said, we appreciate your help, but this is our issue, meaning black on black, because black on black violence was on the rise at that time.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Well, that came along with the hardcore rap,
yes,
because that's the hardcore started in like '88.
hmm
The what was it, the
Ice
West
T,
Coast.
the
Yeah,
West
like
Coast. Well, first it
gangster
was
rap.
first it was the West Coast. Also, first it was the East Coast with their self-destruction single featured Chaos One, Public Enemy,
Right.
and then Heavy D, and then later came the West Coast version called "We're All in the Same Game," featuring members of NWA, MC Hammer, Dr. Dre, and a few others.
Yeah.
The Digital Underground. They were trying to make a point. Black on black violence is killing the black race more than the KKK.
Yeah.
But at that time, many gangsters, many thugs didn't look at it that way. It's like they were looking at it as control over the area that they live in.
Right.
Get what you can, even includes shooting someone dead.
Yeah. And there's it's still rough down there in
I know, yeah,
areas.
I know. And what bums me out is the simple fact that many people today are still some people are still blind to the situations that we're speaking of. Like so many
Right.
times we hear all these radio stations talk about Detroit's a great city to party in, hockey town, St. Andrews Hall, now shelter at back in the day, all those memories. But
Oh yeah.
they got to look at the cons other than just the pros. That's the problem. Many media outlets give us the pros, and then again, there's also media outlets that give us only the cons.
Right.
I mean, there are pros and cons within every city. I mean, like God knows how Chicago is, let alone Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or Minneapolis, Minnesota. I don't know the situations in those areas.
Yes, I'm reading something right now that Devious Dave Rose posted in the Nikki J server
Hmm.
about and about he likes to make it his jokes about Detroit. You know that.
Yes.
So it's ranked Detroit ranks second least safe cities in the U.S.
Oh wow. It's kind of
So
funny. It's kind of funny. When I left Richmond in late 2011 to be with my girlfriend at the time to go back to Detroit, we lived next to the Mexican town area by
oh
I-75.
yeah, I
I
know
was,
where it is.
yes, I was. Her cousin, mentioned that he was going to hire me for his line of work, but eventually he never did. I found out, and he couldn't tell me himself why I do not know. But I found out that his company, which was a pollution control company, were laying off about 30 people.
Wow.
And the thing is, around that time, the economic state of Detroit, let alone Michigan, was at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Everybody around you was on food stamps, collecting some sort of welfare check, unemployment money. So I basically ended up a year and a half unemployed until I found out about a temp service located in Dearborn. I took
Uh,
up on that offer and I was there ever since, up until the time I moved from Detroit to Texas.
right. Yep.
And the
That
thing
is
and the thing that got me is that most of the household that I lived in around that year, which was 2013, many people were trying to run after me to borrow money, such and such, including one of the owners of the house. She was demanding I give her money left and right. She was one of those liberals, and she
right.
was pissed off that I was doing moderating work for a conservative web page.
Really.
Yeah,
That
she
sounds
was.
pretty stupid.
Exactly. And yet these liberals talk about how loving and respectful they are and open to different things, but it's not what but when you find out it's conservative, that's when the claws come out. Let me ask you, what is it about that, what I just mentioned? Why do they have an issue with conservatives when they speak about being accepting of others, accepting of this, but when it comes to someone with a different political view, they throw a shit fit.
And I'm really surprised that back then because that it's gotten a lot worse now.
Hmm.
Definitely.
It's thanks to social media.
Yeah, you could have had back in 2013. You could have had a conservative opinion on things and
Yeah.
not being destroyed by people. But yeah, but other than that, it's only gotten worse.
I think one of the big reasons why is because many of the people today grew up in the 1990s. And I pointed this out to everybody, including YR and a few others, members of the family here. A lot of these kids who grew up as younglings in the 90s watching Batman, the animated series, Freakazoid, Animaniacs, listening to bands like Pearl Jam, Chili Peppers. They learned all these liberal values and ideas, and they take all that into their adulthood. And on top of all that, they also witnessed George W. Bush, Bush Jr., start up the second Gulf War, where hundreds of lives were taken overseas, lots of U.S. lives, I should say, U.S. soldiers, men and women. And on top of all that, we end up in the big recession as a result. Many people were living on hard times at that time. And along with the stories that they heard about George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, when and the fact that both wars in the Middle East were basically done to gain control of the oil that was in Kuwait. Apparently, someone got the idea in Bush Jr.'s head, hey, now you can finish what your father started, unless father got into his ear and reminded him about that. Because they had to stop the first Gulf War because so much public pressure was on Bush 41 to do so. Yeah, no, it was the idea of freeing Kuwait from this dictatorship of Saddam Hussein when it was actually trying to gain control. Because if Hussein got control of all that oil in Kuwait, who knows how much he would raise the cost of purchasing a few gallons of oil for the U.S. Many dictators within the Middle East, like power, power, money, money, power, power. I own this, I own that. I could raise the cost. Like keep that in mind, folks.
I kind of feel that with some of the stuff that went on in the Middle East through those, from the early 90s
Hmm.
or late 80s, early 90s until whenever, was all built, majority of it was built on propaganda.
Yeah, we still got propaganda today.
Hmm.
Yeah, so like for instance, we see a photo of members of MS-13, and the conservative press are like, "Yo, this is what Kamala Harris will allow in the country if she's elected, if the borders are open."
Right.
And that could be
It's
just a random photo of MS-13 doing the selfie.
right.
And then again,
But
but then again, the liberals do the same thing when it came to Trump's inauguration party. They said they'd take a photo of a half-empty park and say, "This is how many turned out at Trump's inauguration." Well, you all know that was false.
right. Yeah, I remember that.
Hmm.
Well, back to Detroit.
Hmm.
Um, what do you miss most about not living back home?
Well, I miss, to be honest, I miss the two locations of the Gibraltar Trade Center. I miss walking around the Renaissance Center many times. I miss the Electronic Festival when it used to be called the DEMF, Detroit
Yeah.
Electronic Music Festival, before it became movement. I remember when it first started out in 2000, it was free to get in.
Yep, I remember that.
Yes, like I remember getting Richie Hawtin's autograph. He was there. I bought one of his, I bought one of his CDs. I think it was the Concept One. I was a big fan of that.
I
As
think
a,
I I
go
think
ahead.
I went in 2000.
Mm, I was there as well. I was only
I
able to
th-
make it on Saturday because I had to work the next day,
I
and
want to
from
say I
then
went
on,
on a Saturday.
I was,
But yeah.
I that in fact, I told the management, the next time I take a day off, it's going to be when the Electronic Festival takes place in Hart Plaza during Memorial Day weekend. And that would be
Hmm.
only on just Saturdays and Sundays. That would be my 2 days off. That's about it. Because I don't really take days off, to
Right.
be fair.
Yeah, now it's all woke.
I
The
know,
the
yeah. So
festival.
everything's woke.
Yeah.
And it's expensive to get in as well.
Yes, very.
Yeah, so I think the last time I went to the last couple of times I went there was back. I think it was in 2010, and the next year. Now, the one in 2010 was about 60 something bucks, and the year after that, it was about I think 80 something dollars. I'm not too sure exactly what cost it was, but it was expensive to get in. It's like I remember seeing many kids holding up signs saying, "Remember when this was free in the beginning?"
Well, that's funny you say that because a buddy of mine, you remember the hoedown?
Yes, I remember the downtown hold on. That used to be at Hart Plaza prior to the electronic festivals taking over, and soon afterwards they had to move it at a different date and later to a different location.
No, it's still on it's still
Hart Plaza?
yeah,
Oh
it's down in
wow,
our plaza.
wow, interesting.
But a buddy of mine's been going since the 90s, and
Ah,
he collects the mugs
mm,
for the beer, for the because they have you keep your mug and get draft beer if you're drinking.
yes,
And the size difference over the years, Dr. Earl, from how big the original one was to what it
yeah,
is now.
yeah,
The original one was huge. It was like a 44-ounce mug,
that big,
and now,
huh?
and now they're giving you maybe a 20-ounce mug.
What?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh
And let me
yeah.
guess, it's expensive to buy purchase, right?
Yep. And
Of
it's more
course.
money now than what it was for the bigger one.
Damn. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. Get that money no matter what.
Right. But yeah, it's just funny. He's got him out. He's got him set up in his bar, like all the years in the order of when he went.
Hell, back when I was going to the electronic festival, a 20-ounce Pepsi or a Coke would cost about $3 back then. I was like, are you serious? Are you
Yeah.
serious? Now you go to a gas station or a 7-Eleven, it costs just about that range. Would you
Hmm.
believe it? I can imagine what's going to cost nowadays when you go to an electronic festival. It probably costs about $4 or $5 or 4.50 for that matter.
Right. Did you
Gee,
know that back it was probably in the early 90s, late 80s, whenever, but Kevin Nash used to bounce at the State Theater.
really? Yeah, Kevin
Hmm.
Nash, Big Sexy, the Giant Killer. Yeah, he spoke about the Detroit riots. He was 8 years old. He
Yeah.
said he was peeking out the over the fence and watching Detroit burn. He even mentioned that there was reportedly army tanks going down I-75.
There were. Yep.
Yeah,
National Guard came in.
wow, exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
I would have loved to meet Kevin Nash because because he it seemed like because he's a Detroiter like I am, along with Eric Bischoff, the guy who helped who ran WCW. He's a Detroiter himself.
Oh yeah. Um, Kevin Nash is too liberal for me. I can only when he
Yeah, I
starts
heard about
talking.
that as well. Why I
Yeah.
mentioned that, yes,
Yeah, I have to turn him off once he starts talking politics.
I know. It's like just talk about wrestling, not politics, okay?
Right.
Thank you very much. But then again, that's how these figures are. They got to express their opinions. They got to make people think the way they want them to think, like actors and musicians do. In fact, Alice Cooper pointed out that if musicians are telling you who and who not to vote for, that's not really freedom. Rock and roll is about freedom. And when you start telling you to help out Africa, not to follow this person, not to do this, that's not considered freedom.
Right. Well, Detroit has quite a few music stars,
Oh yeah,
past and present. Or
yeah, Alice Cooper being one of them.
yeah.
The MC5, which members are no longer around, believe
Right.
it or not, and they're getting inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Me and Dave Rose were talking about that on a music show months back. Let's not forget Iggy Pop and the Stooges. Iggy Pop is the only remaining member of the original Stooges. Keep in mind.
Right.
Yes, your
Well, the
brother. Go ahead.
what is that one? Stripes. The
The
White
White
Stripe.
Stripes. Yes, Jack and Meg White.
Yep, they're from here.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't the lead singer of the Eagles from Royal Oak?
Yes, Glenn Fry, rest in peace. He passed away in 2018.
I used to work with a guy that went to high school with him.
Ah,
Yeah,
interesting. I remember reading that he was a Royal Oak native in one of the local radio station, books that they handed out at one of the old record stores. It was like a list of all the concert venues and parks and everything else, seating arrangements, such and such, and included all these photos of all these performers from yesteryear, like Alice Cooper, Bob Dylan, the
right,
Eagles, the band Boston.
right. Do you
Mhm.
remember the local band, the Howling Diablos?
Yes, I remember. Yes, they were like, I guess they were on I guess they were signed on to a label called Overture Records that was ran by Scott Santos, aka Jade from the Oriental Spas. I was buddies with him. I'm friends with him on Facebook, by the way. He resides in Las Vegas.
Wow,
Yeah, he does he does photography for a magazine called Strip LV, which spotlights on various strippers in the Las Vegas area.
nice.
Mm.
Well, that'd be an interesting job, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I wish he was on the call right now, but yet I don't know if he has any Skype contact or information such and such, let alone StreamYards.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
gosh, I remember a lot of bands like the Trash Brats, Seduce used to hang backstage with them. Also used to go to a couple after parties with them just as well.
wow.
Yeah, in fact, Mark Andrews, the singer bass player, he resides in Nashville right now.
Okay.
Yes, I guess so. Chuck Burns has his band Speedball and guitarist David Black. I don't know what he's doing right now. I think he's still in Detroit. He was a project of this. He was a member of this group called Crud for a while, featuring Vinny Dobronsky from Sponge and Murder City.
Yeah, Sponge is from Detroit too, right?
Exactly. Yep. They
Yeah.
used to be members of Murder City. They later became changed their name to Loud House when they got this singer named Kenny, who was buddies with. They released one album called For Crying Out Loud from 1991. They had this different version of Smoke on the Water that was used in the Point Break movie with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves.
I can still picture the Sponge live on the Ritz sign
Hmm.
sit on Gratiot. I can still picture it.
Hell, I remember. I believe they made their debut at the Ritz in Roseville, and I was there when they sang their song when they did their set, and I was. If I'm fumbling my words, my apologies, folks. There, I'm trying to get out the words as correctly as I can, but I keep fumbling for some dumb fucking reason. But I remember seeing Sponge. I guess they made their debut at the Ritz, and I didn't realize that this was ex-members of Loud House with their drummer as their new frontman, and a change in their sound and their style as well. Because Loud House was basically, like someone in the version of White Zombie, but a lot less, demonic monsters and stuff, but a lot more psychological mind games. The song
Wow.
My Dad is Bigger Than Your Dad, the lyrics of that is like it's kind of oddish when you think about it. Dad's on the corner, saving up every dime. Life's a bitch when you ain't got no eyes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I guess after the singer Kenny left, that's when he decided a couple years later get an extra guitar player and become Sponge. And that's when that first record became a massive big hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was
Yeah.
another. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Detroit's put out. They have a strong music output coming out of
It fits.
Detroit.
I think, in fact, let me go on. I said this before, and I'll say it again. Something about Michigan brings out the aggressiveness in many of these bands, like the MC5, Iggy and the Stooges, the Bob Seger System. Who could not forget the song 2 Plus 2 is on my mind, which is next to War Pigs, one of the most defiant anti war songs out there. Or a song like Death Row. the Bob Seger of today would not even perform a song like that. No doubt about that.
Right.
Yeah. And we also, let's not forget Seduce, many other bands, like and for I understand, Jason Newsted, he hails from Kalamazoo, Michigan, if I'm correct.
See,
Mm,
Michigan.
yeah. In fact, I also want to give a shout out to a lady named Ash Rose, who I follow on Twitch and on the Facebook and on the app formerly known as Twitter X. She's been praising a lot of Detroit bands. She has the Detroit patch on her battle vest, as they call it. In fact, she's fans of a group from Detroit called the Coughing Cats.
Never heard of them.
You never heard of them? I've only heard their name a couple few times in the past, around the early 2000s. They're like a gothabilly unit.
Huh.
Yeah,
No.
a friend of mine named Joey, who I guess still lives in Detroit. He told me about that group for a while. He was also fans of this other gothabilly project called Cult of the Psychic Fetus.
Wow.
Of course, we cannot forget all these other gothabilly bands that are out there that he was a big fan of. It's kind of like rockabilly with a more gothic sense.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm probably the last one you want to be talking music with. I'm not a big egg. I know some of the groups, but yeah, not many.
I know. It's like,
Not compared to what you know. So
yeah, no, because I used to see a lot of bands out there. Lies, Cheats, and Thieves. I remember the Screaming Freaks. I was friends with a couple of their members for a while there. In fact, I remember bands like Sweet Teas, Heaven's Wish, who I guess are still together. It's sad that the Ritz in Roseville had to die down like it did. I guess around 1994, it became the Palladium. And a couple of
yeah,
times when me and whichever girl I was dating at the time would go there, I know Charles English used to DJ there a couple of times. You know, that place closed down,
yeah,
unfortunately. And Charles English, rest in peace, because he passed away a couple of years back. He was one of the most respected DJs. Used to love talking with him, hanging with him. He had a aura about him that really drawed in a lot of people. He was a cool guy.
really.
Yes.
I know
Yeah.
they do a lot of concerts over at the theater in Mount Clemens too.
Oh yeah, the Emerald
Eh,
Theater.
Yep,
Oh yeah, I used to go there when one of the local stations used to host their nights there on Friday nights. When I was
yep,
living in Richmond, I would take a bike down there up to the 23-mile bus stop, get on the bus when it came by, and head down to the Mount Clemens area. And before I go in, I would head to the Gibraltar Trade Center located in that area, not too far. I would hang there for quite a while, check out what they got, buy whatever shirts they had or whatever goodies they had available. I used to hang there a lot of times. I miss those two locations.
yeah. They're gone. The one's gone
I
in
know they're
Mount
both
Clemens.
gone. They're both gone.
Oh, is
Even
I see. I haven't been downriver in a while, so
Oh man, the one in Taylor had a whole bunch of good shit. And we was talking about moccasins. Me and my nephew and my sister, we were out earlier today. We were talking about moccasins. I reminded them both about the black high top moccasins I used to wear that I had purchased from Gibraltar Trade Center.
right.
Yes, one of these days I'm thinking about possibly ordering me some online if they're still available to this day.
I'm sure there are. I'm
I
sure you
know,
can
yeah,
find them.
yes,
Yep.
yes. I remember all those places. I remember, you know, there when I was working with the temp service, there was a lot. I remember doing this one chore with a few others on the Friday and Saturday in downtown Ann Arbor. We finally got to check out Chrysler Arena. I guess it was a recruiting event that they were having. We had to work putting up, taking down all these tents, taking all this stuff and loading them up on trucks, such and such. This was on mostly on Saturday night. But I remember on Saturday we were removing a lot of stuff out of the floor, the main floor on Chrysler Arena. It was my only
Mm-hmm.
time being there, and I used to think, remember, I used to hear about concerts being held at Chrysler Arena, ranging from Billy Joel to Ozzy Osbourne.
Right.
Gosh. Hmm. And one place I miss was Ann Arbor.
Right.
I used to go there a lot of times, whenever I had the chance. Nova, I used to go there, check out the mall over there.
Yeah.
In fact, the Oriental Spas, man, I mentioned, I found out where their studio was located.
Oh, really?
Exactly, which I won't, of course, not reveal for doxing reasons. I'm not going to do that, that's for sure. But you know what? I was friends with those guys for many years,
Right.
especially with Scott Santos, that is, not McKinnon. But you know
Yeah,
what's? Go ahead.
there are other people in the world named Scott.
Correct there, yes. Now, one thing I also remember, you remember a place called Americana Theater?
Where was it?
I forgot. I got to check with my sister to find out where it used to be located. But I remember that place. That was the only theater in the Michigan around that area that was able to show the movie The Last Temptation of Christ.
Hmm.
Yes, that movie caused a lot of controversy.
I can't picture it. Was it at like was it called something else at some other time?
Not I just knew it as the Americana Theater. Let me see if I can look it up on my phone here. Give me a couple minutes here. Blah blah blah. Let me speak it out here.
I don't.
Americana Theater, Michigan. All right, here we go. Okay, it's now the AMC Star Southfield 20.
Oh,
And it's
oh,
in
okay.
Southfield, Michigan.
Gotcha.
No, it's on 12 Mile Index area.
Yeah.
That's where we used to see that's where we first saw the first Star Wars movie.
That's where you've seen the first Star Wars movie?
Yep, I remember it to this day. It was that spot. It was it was that movie theater. Me and my mom.
Why were you way out there if
Well,
you
I
lived
guess, basically, we
or
often
were you
went to
still in Detroit?
well, we were living at Roseville at that time. You remember we all moved to Roseville after my dad got a high-paying job. We decided to move out of the Detroit spot that we were in because Roseville at the time was a lot better living facility. And plus, dad got this new job. He wanted to live close to where he worked.
Right.
And his job was located on 15 Mile by Gratiot. And we
Oh,
lived by 11 Mile and Gratiot.
yeah, I know.
We lived there for many years until situations occurred. Then I was invited to live with my sister and brother-in-law and family in Richmond. I ended up leaving because of all the butting of heads that took place. I lived on my own in Richmond for a good number of years. Got acquainted with an old girlfriend I used to date in the early 2000s, and then we connected again. We were together up until about 2012 when I was when a year after I moved in with her and her family. She breaks up with me to go back to her ex. You know what? I spoke to a few people in the Richmond area that I'm still friends with, and they said, "Earl, you got screwed big time by this bitch."
Ugh, that's no fun.
I know, yes, and the worst of it, she didn't know her. She didn't. She would often brag about the new boyfriend when I was there. That made the hurt worse. Apparently, she didn't realize it until the very end, until her oldest son told her, "Hey, don't do that. Don't do that to the guy. Like he was there for you. You don't want to make the pain for him worse." Apparently, she got the idea from her father, who used to talk about other women in front of their mom.
Wow,
Yeah, he was one of those type of guys.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
doc,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I need to hop off.
Okay, I'm good. It's good to finally do this show with you, man.
Yeah,
After once I've spoke about it a few times to YR, to you, and many others.
definitely enjoyable.
Okay, there. All right.
We
Thank
could
you.
have we could have went down some other avenues, but hey, there's always a
There's
lot more to
another
talk about
time.
again.
Yes, we could. Definitely got to do a follow-up show to this one
Sure.
sometime soon. I. Okay. I'll let
Well,
you
you have a
go,
good
and
night.
you have a good time. You have a
You
good
too.
night as well. Extreme Chef, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. For myself, Extreme Shaft, I thank you all for watching this program. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that like button and notification bell. Everybody enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye bye.